John Miller, very briefly, you said to us just a few minutes ago that this was their concern, that they thought after the first tower went that the second one was vulnerable.
There was constant intelligence that terrorist organizations, and specifically that financed by Osama bin Laden, was trying to mount another series of attacks against the United States. Of course, they thought of the symbolic targets. The most symbolic was the World Trade Center because it had been attacked yet not brought down. And it seems that those concerns that even caused the World Trade Center to hire a senior FBI counterterrorism official just weeks ago to try and beef up security have come home to roost. It's also interesting to say that there is no type of security
which would have prevented against this today. Well, that may not, I was going to say that may not all be able to be true, because security operates in waves and concentric circles out around the world. Now we've lost the picture from there, so now we have it again. Well, wherever you are in the United States or in the world today, you can, the landscape of New York City has just been changed. And one has to assume that thousands of lives have been extinguished. And it may be presumptuous to say thousands, but thousands of people work in these buildings, and given the difficulties of evacuating these buildings where, as we've said several times, the elevators may not have been operating and were not operating in at least one tower, tower number 2, the first one which is to go. That is the second attack on the southern tower, the first higher on this end of town, but both those towers have now gone. And here's a picture that doesn't exist anymore, because that's not a live picture anymore. Good Lord, it just... Now, can I ask where this picture is from? Do we know where this is? This is
outside the World Trade Center. The sign indicates the approach to the
Brooklyn Bridge. To the Brooklyn Bridge. So we're
on West Street, approximately just north of Vesey Street there.
And you can see the dust and debris, and this is at, I don't know if this is at an early stage or whether this is right now. It's at an early stage, because there in the distance you can see at least one of the towers still standing as people wander, many of them dazed. And look at the cell phones in their ears. This is, in a cell phone society, and that's certainly true in the Middle East, people on their cell phones all the time, seeking and offering reassurance to their families and their friends that something has happened. In Israel, and at least those with them in the Palestinian territories these days, there's constant traffic on the cell phones, because there is such tension in the region, and such tension here today, which is extraordinary, that people wanting everywhere to reassure or find out about what has happened to those who are near and dear to them.
One thing we should update for people listening, particularly in this area, who may have been worried, there was a concern that if this building...
You mean in the New York City area?
Yes. There was a concern if this building fell that it would land on the center they had set up at Stuyvesant High School, where the students were still there. The reports from Stuyvesant High School now are that everybody there is okay.
Stuyvesant High School, the high school in the adjacent area, which the city and the state authorities set up to deal with the casualties that they could get out of the building or had occurred adjacent to the building. It is just clear that a lot of people, we do not know how many, got out of the building. And it is going to take time. It is going to take time. The New York City Office of Emergency Management which monitors the city and all its vulnerable points, said when this whole thing began this morning, they could not get an immediate handle on precisely what was happening. And it was only, you've seen this before, this is a recording of precisely what happened when the second tower went down. And this is from a very long distance. This camera is located on the edge of the Hudson River on the West Side Drive, up the western side of Manhattan. And I cannot say this is something that people never believed they would see in the United States, because, of course, Oklahoma City was when we all had that reaction, when Americans experienced terrorism in the heartland for the first time, believing in many cases that it all happened somewhere else. But I just think that millions of Americans will be stunned by the magnitude of this today. I'm trying to track down John McWethy, our correspondent at the Pentagon. He was evacuated. I'm saying this as much to our control room as anybody. He, like everybody else, was evacuated. And I'd also like to talk, if I may, to Claire Shipman at the White House to see what the progression is there, and Linda Douglas at Capitol Hill, because we do know that the leadership of the Senate, at least, Senator Daschle, were moved to a secure location while much of this was going on, but it is very difficult to get through on anybody's cell phone. And this is, Pierre Thomas, another reminder of, you wonder if this is something that people anticipate. We now live in the age of cell phone. We now rely on cell phones for so much. When there's chaos like this, too many people on the cell phones, they don't work.
Well, one of the things that they had to deal with today, Attorney General Ashcroft was en route to Milwaukee today. And now with the planes grounded, he's going to have to communicate by phone. They have an internal communication system at the Justice Department that they use in situations like this, video monitors. But again, everyone is dispersed, and with the planes grounded, this created a scenario that they, quite frankly, hadn't seen before.
It is the grounding of the planes which pretty much brings to a halt. I mean, one assumes that Air Force One, with the President, is already on its way back to Florida. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. ABC's John McWethy is on a cell phone at the moment, and while he cannot hear me, somebody can tell him to start talking, please, and we'll listen. Okay, we'll try that again. Anytime John McWethy begins to talk and tell us what's happening at the Pentagon, or as much as he knows what's happening at the Pentagon, we will simply let him go. But it's just very difficult to get through on cell phones. Thousands of people trying to find out where their friends and their relatives are. Thousands of reporters, news organizations, of city organizations, state organizations, federal organizations, trying to understand not only what happened today, which in some respects is secondary, but to get something done. And there's just so much agitation around. You get a report just a couple of moments ago from the security at the Capitol Police saying that they believe a hijacked plane may be bound for the Capitol. There's an intensity in the air and a fear and a trauma in the air at 20 minutes to 11 Eastern Time in the United States, 20 minutes to 8 on the West Coast, or in the western part of the United States. The day has just beginning, and all of this has happened in just under an hour. The first attack on the Trade Tower was just before 10 o'clock. The second one came at 3 minutes after 10. We have a strike on the Pentagon, which came a little after that, and the country is just riddled. 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock, I'm sorry. The country is just overrun, as it's inevitable it would be with rumors. I'm curious, John, in terms of the emergency operation that you monitor, are they in a sense of panic? Are they or just in a sense of chaos?
In a sense of chaos. There was a brief sense of panic, which is understandable when the first tower collapsed. By the time the second tower collapsed, they were prepared for it. There were numerous other injuries. The level of coordination is incredible. The FDR Drive, which is a main artery, has been shut down for the purpose of keeping it clear for ambulances to go to hospitals. They've anticipated that the lower Manhattan hospitals in New York City will fill up, so they have started to arrange helicopter flights to go to hospitals further out in the circle. They've really been they've really been pretty well coordinated throughout this. If you can possibly be coordinated during a series of spontaneous events that amount to disaster.
This is war, and war by another definition.
One of the
we did manage to get Rebecca Cooper, one of our reporters.